Hey guys, it's Bella and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing the mid-year book freakout tag. It is mid-July, which means that we are officially halfway through this year, and I thought it would be fun to do this tag and show you guys some of the best and worst books that I've read this year. Also, it is raining right now, so sorry if you hear that in the background. The first question for the tag is the best book that you've read so far. For these questions, I decided to try and stay away from rereads and only pick books that I just read this year, and I do have a lot of rereads that I did this year, so it does eliminate a lot of my options, and that's how I was able to pick my favorite book of 2021 so far, and that is Crescent City. Now, for those of you who don't know, I love Crescent City. I found this book fantastic. It is a new adult fantasy about a half-fae girl named Bryce, and she has to solve a murder or help solve a murder, and she ends up discovering a lot more along the way. So I read this book in January and it was so good. The characters, the writing just blew me away. Bryce is one of my favorite main characters of all time. I got my little Crescent City print in the background, so this print that you guys see in the background of all my videos, that's actually Bryce from Crescent City. Now, my honorary mentions, and I promise this is the only question where I'm doing honorary mentions, are some rereads, which are Kingdom of Ash, which is the last book in the Throne of Glass series, and Crooked Kingdom, which is the second book in the Six of Crows duology. I absolutely love those books, and it is very hard for me to choose favorites, so I just wanted to include those. The next question is the best sequel that you've read so far this year. Now, the best sequel that I've read so far would definitely have to be Chain of Iron. Oh my god, look at this beauty. I had anticipated Chain of Iron so much since I first read all of the Shadowhunter books last year, and I could not wait for Chain of Iron, and it definitely did not disappoint. This is the new Shadowhunter sequel for Chain of Gold, and I loved it. There were so many moments between characters that I just loved and had been waiting for since reading the first book, and I just love all the characters so much in this series. And if you are a Shadowhunter fan, you have not read Chain of Gold or Chain of Iron, what are you doing? Read it. It's amazing. You won't regret it. The third question for this tag is, what is a new release that you haven't read yet but you really want to? And for me, that would definitely be Better Together. First of all, I love the dual cover situation, and I love the cute little spine thing. Like, I just find this book so cute looking. And this was released in June. I believe it was June 1st. I did pre-order it. It didn't come on June 1st, but I did pre-order it. And I really wanted to read this book, and I meant to as soon as I got it, but it just kept getting pushed back because I am a little bit behind on how many books I wanted to read by this point in the year. So I promise I will read it this summer. I feel like it will be a really fun summer read. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I watched Christine's writing vlogs for this book, so it made me really hyped to read it. You know, the premise of this book is like The Parent Trap combined with a Freaky Friday situation. So if that interests you, you should join me and read this book this summer. The fourth question is my most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And I actually don't really have one. Most of my anticipated release either already came out or are coming out early 2022. But I do know that the sequel to These Violent Delights is coming out later this year, and I did really want to read the first book before reading the sequel, so I guess that'll count. Alright, the next question is my biggest disappointment for this year. And I know a lot of people watching this if you know me at all, will be very shocked by my answer, but that actually is Shadow and Bone. Now, before you come for me, I do really like Shadow and Bone, and the trilogy does get really, really good as it goes on. The reason why this is my biggest disappointment is, number one, I didn't really have any other disappointments this year. I did rate a few books low. By low, I mean like 3 stars. I don't really rate that many books low, but they weren't really disappointments. I kind of saw it coming that I wouldn't like them, and one of them was a reread, so I knew it was going to be rated kind of lower. But the reason why this was my biggest disappointment is because I had some really high expectations for this book. I was so excited going into it, and it did let me down a little bit. It wasn't quite what I was looking for in this book, and that's okay. I do love the trilogy. It just was a little disappointing, especially because I did read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom before I read this trilogy, and her writing did improve a lot in those books because they're her later books. This was, you know, her first book, I believe. Yeah, I'm like 90% sure this was her first book. And so it's understandable why the writing wasn't quite as good and why some things were disappointing, but that's just the experience I had with it. If you do want to read this trilogy, don't let me discourage you. It's still worth the read. I just did find it a little disappointing. Alright, the next question is my biggest surprise. My biggest surprise for this year is The Golden Compass. This is actually the entire trilogy. I just have like one thick version with all of them combined. But yeah, The Golden Compass was my biggest surprise. It is a children's trilogy with similar vibes to Narnia, but like in reality it's completely different from Narnia. That's just the only thing it's really compared to and that I can think to compare it to. But what happened was I watched the show and, you know, I enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite, but I enjoyed it. So I decided might as well listen to the audiobooks of the trilogy because I'd been wanting to listen to some audiobooks and I thought I would give it a shot. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. Like, I really didn't expect to. But this trilogy was so good. It made me cry, it made me laugh. I just absolutely love it. So if you're looking for a good, I wouldn't even call it lighthearted because it can get pretty dark, but you know, that children's book series vibe where it's kind of like a more lighthearted read. If you're looking for that, I would definitely recommend The Golden Compass. And also, if you did like Narnia, but you wanted something different from it, or if you just like Narnia in general, then I think you will like The Golden Compass. The next question is my new favorite author, and that is Leigh Bardugo. I did read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom last year, and I did really enjoy them when I read them, but there was something about rereading them this year, reading the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and the Nikolai and Zoya duology, and watching the show that came out this year. I don't know, it just absolutely made me fall in love with her writing and her characters. And if you like fantasy or just really good, interesting characters, if you like, I don't know, good world building, and if you're kind of finding some of the more traditional high fantasy stuff boring, then you should definitely check out Leigh's work. I have not read Ninth House. I am planning on reading it, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. So that is one of her books that I haven't read. But I read all of her Grishaverse stuff and I absolutely love it. Next question is my new fictional crush. This has got to be Bryce from Crescent City. I'm absolutely in love with her. She's so strong and powerful and smart. And I just loved reading her character all throughout Crescent City. You know, she's like, look at her. How can you not fall in love with her? Like, she's amazing. So yes, Bryce from Crescent City is my answer. Next question kind of goes hand in hand. It's my new favorite character. I would have said Bryce, but you know, I can't really choose her for both. So I gotta go with the crows from Six of Crows. I know I said I wasn't going to be choosing rereads, but I just had to make an exception. Kaz and Inej are my favorite crows. They are just such complex characters. They provide so much diversity, and I just absolutely love their characters so much. Like, I have become obsessed with Six of Crows and all of the characters in it. Alright, now on to a book that made you cry this year. Now, for those of you who haven't watched my Dark Artifices reading vlog, which I will put somewhere on the screen in a little card, you should know that I cry at so many books. I have cried at multiple, and by multiple I mean a lot of books this year. So as I mentioned before, I don't really want to pick rereads, so that took a lot of them out because, you know, rereading your favorite books can make you emotional sometimes. And I did cry a lot of rereads, so that did take some out, but still there was a lot of options. But one that I remember particularly painful, I remember sobbing. There's literal tear-stained pages in this book. I'm not gonna find them, but like there are tear stains in this book. So that was Rule of Wolves. You know, I was talking about Leigh Bardugo, and this is the sequel to King of Scars in a duology that she wrote in the Grishaverse. And this book was really good. It almost gave me a reading hangover. I had to like quickly swerve out of that by reading Shadowhunter books. But there is one part in here that made me absolutely sob. And for those of you who have read it, you probably know what part I'm talking about. I'm not gonna spoil it, obviously, but like, devastating. Devastating. Next question is a book that made you happy. And that is the Heartstopper novellas. They are just so cute and wholesome and lovely, and they have such good representation. Absolutely recommend. They filled my heart when I first read them. Second to last question is the most beautiful book that you've gotten this year. I would say Crescent City because it is one of my favorite covers of all time. Probably my favorite cover of all time. I love the Crescent City cover. But since I can't choose that book again, I'm definitely gonna have to go with King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. I know, I'm sorry, there's so many Leigh Bardugo books and mentions in this video, but like, I went on a whole spree of reading her books this year, so it's only fitting. But this has got to be one of my favorite, probably my favorite naked hardback book covers ever. Like, the spine, beautiful. It looks like a special edition. The last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? The answer is a lot. I have a goal of 100 books set for this year, and I've gotten 51 done so far, which means I'm on track, but I have 50 more to read. I want to expand my books more. I want to read more contemporaries and classics, and I just want to read a lot before the end of the year. I did more rereads than I was hoping to this year, so that's why I just want to read some new books and different types of books that I haven't read before. That was the end of this tag. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and a comment if you like this kind of content, and turn on those post notifications. Bye!